Hi there and welcome to your 10-day program on yoga philosophy. I'm super happy that you're here. More than 100 people subscribed to the program, which is pretty awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It also made me jump out of my comfort zone and make my very first video ever. I will not edit the thing because I have no idea how. I will just shoot it here in my living room in Morocco, which means you might hear the neighbors, you might hear the seagulls, a mosque, and two little birds who usually fly around here in the morning. 10-day program on yoga philosophy. What we'll do is we'll look at a little bit of theory in those 10 minutes, 15 minutes per day, have a look at how you can put those principles into your daily life, and I will give you an assignment of the day. How does that sound? Why do we do this? Why would we be interested in the yoga philosophy? Because the yoga philosophy, as we'll learn, will teach us quite a bit about the nature of our minds, how the mind works, how it is that we suffer, why do we suffer, how do we get out of this loop of suffering, and how can we then put those things into our daily life to get a little bit more peace of mind. Because I notice that is the main thing that also when people come on retreat that they're asking for is, could I have a little bit more peace of mind? How do I stop all these fluctuations of the mind? How can I get a little bit more peace of mind? So that's what we'll do. Ananda is right around the corner, total bliss, no problem. In 10 days, everything will be fixed. I think we'll have a lot of fun. And let's dive in, because if we want to check out yoga philosophy, what is yoga then? Yoga gets a bit confusing nowadays, I must say, because yoga equals acro yoga, aerial yoga, aqua yoga, Shivananda yoga, Shiva Mukti yoga, Kundalini yoga, bro yoga, naked yoga, yoga with goats, yoga with wine. Is that still yoga? There's yoga wars going on right now, which is a bit interesting, of course, between people who say that is yoga, that is not yoga. Is doing yoga with goats yoga or not? I don't know. I'm very curious. If, by the way, you have done yoga with goats, let me know, because I'm very curious how that works. They smell, no? I mean, I don't eat them. They're creatures of God, all good. But with the hooves, if you've done goat yoga, please let me know. I'm interested. The main thing with all these types and styles that I've mentioned just now is that it has to do with asana, with posture. You're working with the body more than with the mind. So we might throw in some mantras or some breathing or a little bit of concentration, but the main thing is that we're doing postures. And whilst that's always been part of yoga as such, it's just a part in a much bigger system. So that's what we'll explore. So if we go back to the history, some people say that yoga is about 5,000 years old. What they refer to is probably a figure in lotus in this valley 5,000 years ago. And this figure was on a kind of a stamp, a seal, sitting in that posture. Now, historically, there's not enough proof to show us that this person is actually doing something yogic, so being busy with meditation or concentration in any way. Other people say yoga is from 1500 before the Common Era. What they refer to is the word yoke, yoga, yush, from Sanskrit, which is true. It is mentioned 1500 before the Common Era in the Vedas, but again, there's little to no proof to tell us that this yoke, bringing together, is something else than bringing together an animal with some kind of a carriage or a chariot. Where we do find real proof and real teachings of yoga is 500 before the Common Era in the Upanishads. So in the Upanishads, old ancient texts from India, they start mentioning the inner self, how to have more pure consciousness contact, the Atman, Purusha, all those kind of things are being mentioned there. So really the first teachings of yoga, 500 before the Common Era. Then you also have these stories, and historically proven stories, of ascetics who are doing all kinds of tapas. No, not the Spanish dishes. Tapas as in cultivating spiritual heat. If you've ever had a Kundalini class with me, I mean, that one, creating heat in order to understand the nature of the mind, because this is a mind thing, not a muscle thing, if nothing's really wrong with the muscles. So already then we had tapas pop up there, had nature of the mind, had dukkha investigation, suffering. Why do we suffer? Because the Buddha was walking around there as well. So loads of influence from Buddhism, from Jainism, from the early Hindu-based texts, all of that. So also walking around there was Patanjali. Patanjali, not too much known about this man, besides Brahman intellectual male person who put everything together that was known about yoga up until then and made it into a systematic approach, a systematic idea of how to investigate the nature of the mind once again. So in 195 sutras, threads of wisdom, very cryptic sentences, he explains what yoga is. And in the very first 4 sutras, really, he explains the whole system. So in the very first one, where he says atha, and now we're going to study yoga as such, a lot of people put that first one as being super interesting because they put all the mindfulness and the presentness in the present moment. They go wild on that first sutra. And you can, because you have the sutra and then you have commentary, lots of different commentary. And the real knowledge is in the commentary, really, written by Patanjali or somebody else. Not sure about that. So the second sutra really explains what yoga is. Yoga is that state of mind where the fluctuations of the mind are silent. So stillness of the fluctuations of the mind. The third sutra says, when you have reached that state of mind, you get in contact with pure consciousness. The fourth sutra tells us, if you don't get to that state of mind, you keep falsely identifying with your beliefs, your ideas, your emotions, your egos as being your true self, which is not true. They only obscure the vision that we have about ourselves. So super interesting as such to just contemplate about that. And in the rest of the book, he just explains how to get there, how to get to that state of mind where the fluctuations of the mind are stilled, nirodhad, as I like to say. So in the second chapter of his book, he gives us the system, the 8 limbs of yoga to reach that samadhi state, that state where the fluctuations of the mind are stilled. And that is also the figure that you have in your email, so the 8 limbs of yoga. Can you pick out, cherry pick? No, you have to follow all the limbs of yoga, do and cultivate all the limbs of yoga in order to be a good and true yogin. First ones, sometimes they call them the ethical codes of yoga, the yamas, then we have niyamas, we have asana, the postures. A lot of people say that they go to yoga class, they actually do asana class. Then we have pranayama, so restraint of the breath, control of the breath. We go to pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. I usually get this image of a tortoise, withdrawal of the senses. If a tortoise has had enough of the world, it withdraws. So that's the idea. Also in longer meditation, retreats, at a certain point there's the withdrawal of the senses and you can focus on what is in here. You can start concentrating dharana, on what is really here, before you go into meditation, dhyana, and then the final state, samadhi. So that is what yoga is. And the first principle that we will look at today is ahimsa. So the first yama of the first limb of yoga. Ahimsa means, and they're quite clear about that in the commentary, it means non-harming. Non-harming without any exceptions. So non-harming any other living being. And it is very interesting to put these concepts into our daily lives when you put it to body, mind, and spirits or other people as such. So in the first place, when we look at our bodies, if you put in ahimsa into your own body, in relation to your own body, then we see, for example, food-wise, what do you put into your body? Is that non-violent or is it rather violent? Is it too much food or is it not enough food? What kind of food? Junk food or things that are really not good for you? It gives you an indication of how violent you are with yourself. Very simple and very complicated at the same time. Physically also, if you have an asana practice or you go to the gym, how non-violent, how violent are you? When is it enough and when do you need to push through? What is uncomfortable and what is painful? And do you rest when you need to rest or do you push through? Now sometimes people don't agree with me on this one, on the non-violence and in pushing through to reach certain goals. And then usually they don't really understand what it is that we try to say. Let me give you the example of my running escapades. So I started running a while ago, and now I have this mantra, and the mantra is, you don't stop when you're tired, you stop when you're done. Not sure why I make all these sounds and movements. And it works. It works to look at my little app and think, oh God, I don't want to do that amount of kilometers or miles. I'm a bit tired, I don't feel well, my this aches, my that aches, there's too much wind. But then that mantra keeps me on track and I push through. I push through now because I was non-violent to my body before. Because when you start with running, your body needs to get used to the movement. So your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back, they're like, what the heck is going on here? And then you need to be very non-violent and rest a lot more perhaps than you would think you need to rest or to be on your schedule or whatever. So to build in that what is uncomfortable and what is painful, and to be non-violent with your body. Once again, this in Kundalini is quite uncomfortable. Is it painful? With most people, it isn't. So find that fine line and examine if you're uncomfortable. What makes it uncomfortable? Can you relax in being uncomfortable? That is very interesting. In any asana practice, in any gym practice, in whatever you're doing, can I relax in being uncomfortable and just letting it be as such? Thought-wise, so the mind, we have about 65,000 thoughts per day. How many of those are non-violent? When I'm on retreat, give this workshop, there's usually somebody who says 2, which is very funny and very sad at the same time. Because why only 2? There should be 64,800 whatever non-violent thoughts in your mind, because that's one of the results of cultivating ahimsa. It is that the hostility disappears around you. Even the Dalai Lama said something very similar, and he's like, if there's no anger within you, you won't encounter anger around you. So very interesting that people don't have the urge anymore to defend themselves. Everybody can be completely themselves when they're around you. That would be nice. Even animals have that. So it is always in a very broad context with the world. So that is ahimsa. So it's very interesting to just look at that. How can you be more non-violent in every single step that you do, in every move that you make, in every conversation that you have? Now we have an assignment of the day, and the assignment for today is catching the judgment in the moment. So whenever you have a judgment, a negative judgment about a specific person or a specific situation, at that moment, catch it and ask yourself the following question: if you know all the details, do you have all the information that you need to judge this situation? If you don't, then don't judge. Instead, make it a positive experience. So see the positive in it. Active kindness, cultivating active kindness. That is your assignment of the day. Very simple and not so easy to do at the same time. So whenever you catch yourself judging, whether it is yourself, whether it is this assignment and me right now, catch yourself in the moment and put it into something positive. Even in one of the sutras, it is said, if you have a negative thought, how to get rid of the negative thought is to make it into something positive. Ahimsa as the baseline, as the foundation for all the other principles to come. I also have a little thing to read that I found, or Brendan Burchard brought it to my attention. It's clearly not his, because I recognize so many things from other traditions and philosophies in it, but I thought it was really nice because it is Monday and we start our week. Grant me the strength to focus this week, to be mindful and present, to serve with excellence, and to be a force of love. I'll repeat it. Grant me the strength to focus this week, to be mindful and present, to serve with excellence, and to be a force of love. That is it. Thank you for watching. We're at 15-16 minutes. Tomorrow it will be 10 minutes, I promise, on truthfulness. Good luck with your assignment and see you tomorrow.